1992, Mike Tyson, the most famous boxer in the world, a superstar earning millions of dollars. But on that day, fame, money, and power meant nothing. When the heavy iron doors of the prison slammed shut, the world was left outside. Now, Mike Tyson was just inmate number 43285-013. The only sound echoing in his head was the judge's firm voice. "Inmate, you are sentenced to 6 years in prison." As he took his first steps inside, all eyes were on him. He had walked in as a boxing champion, but in here, the rules of the fight were different. This was a place where even the strongest could get lost. The first days, the prison was cold, and the gray walls reflected nothing but hopelessness. Tyson sat alone in his tiny, cramped cell. A man who had spent years in luxury hotels and mansions was now trapped in a living nightmare. He had gone from being watched by millions to being a forgotten inmate. For weeks, he barely spoke, barely ate, and didn't train. He wouldn't even look at his reflection, because the man in the mirror wasn't the same anymore. "I can beat my opponents in the ring, but what if I can't beat myself?" he thought. But in this prison, no one cared about his past glory. Here, everyone wanted to be the toughest, and when someone like Tyson arrived, there were always those who wanted to challenge him. That day finally came. One morning in the prison cafeteria, a fellow inmate walked up to Tyson. "Hey champ, you think you can live off your fists here?" Tyson looked up, his eyes cold. The man smirked, mocking him, but Tyson stayed silent. He didn't want to fight anymore. The inmate didn't back down. He threw a cup of water at Tyson, and in that instant, years of buried rage exploded. One punch, the man hit the ground, the food tray flying into the air. The entire prison fell silent. The guards grabbed Tyson and dragged him back to his cell. Sitting alone, he looked down at his hands. "I'm still a fighter, but I don't even know why I'm fighting anymore." That was his lowest point. Months passed in prison. Every day, Tyson stared at his reflection but couldn't recognize himself. He stopped working out. He had no interest in reading. The fists that once shook the world were now motionless. But one night, lying on his bunk, his old coach Cus D'Amato's words echoed in his mind. "Mike, the real fight doesn't happen in the ring. The real fight is inside you." Tyson sat up in bed. For the first time, he truly understood. He wasn't fighting an opponent now. He was fighting himself. And if he gave up, he'd lose everything. At that moment, he made a decision. He had to rebuild himself. Tyson stepped into the prison yard. For the first time, he picked up heavy weights. He ran. He shadowboxed. He threw punches again. The other inmates began looking at him differently. He was a boxer, but now he was becoming something more. He started reading books, philosophy, strategy, the art of war. For the first time, he learned to control his rage. He wasn't fighting for his past anymore. He was fighting for his future. 1995, Mike Tyson's release day arrived. The doors opened and the sunlight hit his face. 3 years ago, he had walked in as a boxing legend, but now, he was walking out as a changed man. Reporters were waiting outside the prison. Questions, flashing cameras, a buzzing crowd. A journalist shouted, "Tyson, are you coming back to the ring?" Mike smiled, but this smile wasn't like before. He wasn't stepping back in the ring just to win. He was stepping in to rebuild himself. That day, Mike Tyson entered the first round of his greatest fight yet. Some battles are won outside the ring. Mike Tyson's greatest opponent was his own inner demons. And perhaps, this was the biggest victory of his life. The greatest fight is the one you have with yourself. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Small decisions lead to big transformations.